On today's episode, I had the privilege of sitting down with Erica Munchbach. Erica is a member of our local community here in Lansing, Michigan. Having obstacle after obstacle thrown her way, Erica has still managed to overcome and rise above. See what I did there? Erica is in the process of starting a nonprofit called Jubilee that will have a huge impact on our community. Without me giving it away, I will let you listen to what she has to say. I enjoyed this conversation and I hope you do as well. Please remember to follow me on social media and to subscribe on YouTube. And if you have a story or a message that you feel could help other people, then I would love to help you tell it. Please feel free to reach out to me through email or Facebook or Instagram. All right, welcome to the Rise and Above podcast. My name is David Hess, and today I have a special guest with me. Her name is Erica Munchbach. She's in the works of starting Jubilee, which is a organization, nonprofit organization for underprivileged people here in our local community. I guess without further ado, I'll have her introduce herself.
Hi.
Erica, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Glad to hear it. Yes, I'm Erica, and I just got the paperwork back from the state for Jubilee, so it is now an official legal entity, but it's a project that I've been working on for a few years and have big hopes and dreams for.
That's awesome. So before we talk a little bit about Jubilee, let's kind of go back. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you from the Lansing area? Were you born and raised here? I know you live right up the street from me, so.
I do live right around the block, or right around the corner, I guess. But I was born here, and I went to elementary school in Lansing, and I lived here until 10. And at that point, my mom moved us to Sunfield, which is about 30 miles west of Lansing. And I went to elementary school in Sunfield, and I graduated from high school in Lake Odessa from Lakewood High School, and then promptly moved back to Lansing. There wasn't a whole lot of career opportunities, and well, there are parts of the country rural lifestyle that I like. Like, I had a horse as a teenager. I absolutely loved that. I just didn't really feel like that was, really where I belong. I belong in more urban area, so I did move back to Lansing shortly after high school.
It's real country living out there.
Yes.
It's small. Lake Odessa is kind of bigger, but it's still small.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice area though.
Mm-hmm.
So you moved back to Lansing, and then what?
And then my first big move was I got a job at Sparrow, and I worked in Central Sterile Supply, which is part of surgery there. And I kind of thought maybe I'd move up in the hospital, but then I did eventually. I worked there for 5 years and quit with the intentions of going back to school to probably be a veterinarian. That was an interesting journey. I had one child at that point. She was 2 when I quit my job at Sparrow, and I got really into like molecular biotechnology, so I thought that maybe I'd want to do something with that. But
Can you explain what that is? Because I was reading your bio that you sent me, so let's kind of break that down. You said you quit because you were raising a child. You had your child at 24 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you started going to school for biology. What was it again?
So my focus at MSU, had I gone that route, would have been molecular biology and biochemistry, and then molecular biotechnology is like the precursor at LCC. So I learned a lot about like cloning, and like we actually did some cloning and like some gene manipulation in my classes and that sort of thing. And I think that's still my goal at that point. If I did go to MSU, was still probably to go like to that school and be a veterinarian, and possibly like with the degree from LCC, you can also do things like work in a forensics lab and that sort of stuff. So
Okay.
the specifics of all that stuff have escaped me many years ago.
So it's essentially gene editing and
There's a lot of that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, just biology at the molecular level.
Wow, that sounds real
Because
interesting.
there's biology at like the organismal level, as far as like you and I were organisms, and then there's cell biology. There's also like systems biology, and then underneath cell biology is molecular biology. There's a lot of stuff going on at the molecular level in our body. So one of my favorite sayings is, if I can remember it correctly, is I might look like I'm doing nothing, but at the cellular level, I'm very busy. So,
I like that. I might have to steal that.
yes.
So you were going to MSU for that, or LCC?
Yes.
And then what?
And then I had my second child, and I think I was like 29 at that point, and that was just kind of like, I didn't quit right away. I remember when she was 10 days old, taking her to a microbiology conference in a stroller and in my arms, and it was fun. But just like, I didn't have enough support from the partner that I was with at that point, and overall, like, it didn't work. Just because like I had to prioritize being a mother and that sort of thing at that point. So
You had to put their needs before your own.
yep.
So, so how did Jubilee come about? Let's kind of break that down. Let's talk about what happened in your life, if you don't mind.
Hmm.
If you don't want to.
No, yeah, definitely. These are important things to talk about. So, my second child was born when I was 29, and I feel like I put a lot of focus on being a pretty good parent and making them a priority up until that point. And to be very honest, in my early 30s, I just kind of got sick of it. Like, nobody ever put me first, ever. And so I did kind of like, there was somebody that wanted to date me. And, I wouldn't say that I just totally abandoned my kids, really, but I did start to put what I thought I want at that point in time ahead of what was best for them. And I did date that person and got involved in all sorts of things that weren't good for me or them. And,
Like drugs or trouble? What?
not a whole lot of trouble, but definitely drugs and just like around people that didn't have the same mindset, But it was an interesting experience because for the first time in my life, I felt like I had good friends around me that like really enjoyed my company. So that was a draw into the different crowds or whatever, but just like partying and going out to clubs and stuff when maybe I did a little bit of that before I had kids, but the whole time that up until that point, like I didn't go to bars or go to clubs or anything like that, but I did start doing some of that and kind of get drawn into that lifestyle and just the whole mindset and yeah, that's what happened.
So how long did you kind of go down that route?
It was fun for like a couple years, and then it wasn't fun. I was in the relationship that I was in was pretty abusive. It's not like the worst one that I've ever heard of, but I've definitely got some stories that will probably put people's jaws on the ground. And so I would say like around 2011 was when I really, took a turn for the worse. And um, probably about 2015 was when I started to try to turn it around. So yeah, like there was a situation with the person that was abusive to me, and that was really the first time that he had crossed a boundary as far as like abusing me in front of my children, and it was like really intense. Like he tried to burn my house down that day. He
Whoa.
did thousands of dollars worth of property damage in my house. I had a Grand Am at that point in time. He stepped on the hood of my car, stomped my windshield in. When my kids and I were in the car and like, we were just trying to get away and be safe until the police came. He had a brick, like, I don't know what stopped him from throwing the brick through the window, but it was really bad. So at that point in time, it was like definitely like, we cannot do this anymore. So I had called the police that day, and we stayed in the domestic violence shelter for a couple months and just like got PPO, and it was done. Like I can't say that I never saw him again in my life because we did have a fairly healthy acquaintanceship for a while. He passed away recently, actually, but for several years it was like no contact, and then eventually, like a lot of the good friends that I had met through him. Good friends slash bad influences. I had to step away from all that too. So I would say that throughout most of 2016 and then 2017 was the year that I really pushed to make a big change in my life. Like I was a homeowner at that point, and I had got the best job I'd ever had, and I was gonna make it. So that was my focus for 2017. My plans. It was also like a year that I learned that there's definitely a force at work in this universe that's like way more important and stronger than me. So I learned a lot about God's sovereignty that year, that I'm not really in charge of much, because if I were, then I would have that house and I would have that job and be progressing on that path. And that's actually kind of where the idea for Jubilee started. It's because when I wanted to turn my life around, I tried on my own, and then I realized like I actually can't do this on my own. Like the nature of my mental and emotional issues was not really something that I was going to be able to sort out on my own. So I sought that support from different counselors and even like my church. I was admitted to CMH at one point in time. I don't know how far into those stories you want to go, but
we can talk about anything you want.
Yeah, it was I was let down, I think, a lot and betrayed by these systems. Like even previous to these experiences that I've had, I probably would have said like, well, if you have addiction, that's okay. I'm not going to judge you. If you want your life to be different, just go to rehab and get better. It doesn't work like that at all. It's really actually hard to get into rehab unless you're a billionaire or have a lot more resources.
A good rehab.
Yes, yeah. And then actually, that's really important point is like a good rehab, which they mostly don't exist because the way that we're dealing with these people is not effective. So that's kind of I really felt God speaking to me about the gaps and cracks because like I consider myself a pretty intelligent person and capable, and I was like really dedicated to making these changes and even making the connections that were necessary to make the changes. I remember at one point in time I wrote a 4-page intervention and handed it to several people in leadership positions at this huge church I was attending, and it was like really easy to get money from the church. Not that I tried to manipulate them, but when I'm at different points where like I can't make my bills or my car needs to be repaired and I know that the church is available, then I'm definitely going to utilize that resource. But when I went to them and say, these are the specific things that I need, this is the type of like real intervention that I need, otherwise my life is going to spontaneously combust, they actually told me like, well, we'll be there for you once in a while, but no one's going to be there to hold your hand, Erica. And I heard that from church leadership, and I just was like devastated. I was like, well, hand-holding is what I need the most right now. So
you need some positive reinforcement, somebody to kind of just be your friend and show you the ropes a little bit. Like, hey, don't go down that way. Don't go down that route. Let's go this way.
That's definitely part of it. I might have needed like some more intensive help that wasn't like available, or maybe they have like what I really think. The one thing that sticks out in my mind as I was delivering pizzas, and I had enough money to make my life work at that point in time, and I had because we didn't talk about that part, but I did dabble in hard drugs for a couple years, and I had given up the hard drugs, but I was still smoking like a lot of weed.
What's considered hard drugs?
To me, hard drugs is cocaine and heroin for the most part, and I think that the pills also fall into hard drugs.
Okay.
So, but at this point, when I was like trying to do better, I was still like not unapologetically, I wasn't impressed with my weed habit, but it really was like a coping mechanism, and it kept me from feeling suicidal a lot of the time, and just like I couldn't sort out my life at all. So it just helped me like get up and get through the day of chaos that I didn't really like. There was just no way to win or no way to make progress at that point. And so I had like a couple different jobs. I had a caregiving job, and I had a job as a histotechnologist, which was actually utilizing my education. So I was excited about that. And
what's a histotechnologist?
Histotechnologist studies histology is the study of tissue.
Okay.
So what I did in the lab is I worked in a dermatologist lab, and I would pick the specimens up that he took off of people and do the process of, I would examine them, describe them so that the pathologist, kind of knew what it looked like. They called it a gross examination.
That sounds disgusting.
It was like, it was gross, but it was also like pretty cool actually, because I got to pay, like there's certain ways that you're supposed to dye this stuff, so I was like, it was like art.
Okay.
So I was like dyeing this stuff, and then, of course there's a good way and a technique involved, and I was pretty good at it actually, because so I processed them until the point where they were like flat on a microscope slide that the pathologist could look at and diagnose what this person was dealing with, or whether maybe they weren't dealing with anything at all. So that's what I did as a histotechnologist. But back to the support that I really needed at that point is like I had enough money to make my life work, but I just didn't have the wherewithal to prioritize how to dig myself out of the holes I was in. So that was some of the help that I was really looking for from my church, is for someone to hold my money and help me prioritize how to spend it, because I just really realized at that point that I I couldn't. I was delivering pizzas. I would make $50 to $75 a night delivering pizzas 4 days a week on top of like the other jobs that I had. But what I did with the pizza money is every single time, for the most part, is buy my kids a pizza, fill my gas, fill my gas tank up, and buy some weed so that I could make it through the next day. And I'm just like,
Wow.
I shouldn't be spending money on weed, and I shouldn't be spending money on pizza. And if I had like an accountability partner or someone available to hold that money for me and just be a barrier, like I will figure out a way through. I'm not going to pester or beg this person. You know, I just craved accountability so much, but it just was really unfortunate that there was no accountability available. I asked several different people in my personal life and people in my church, and just wasn't,
Wow.
no, there was nobody willing and able to fill that role. So
Essentially, it's almost like you just needed like a mentorship program.
absolutely.
It's kind of, I grew up in foster care, and I was just recently going through all my documentation from the foster system, and they're talking about how my mom, who she was trying to get us back for a short period of time, but how she struggled with like finding a place to live, and she struggled with like keeping a job and like finances and just various things, kind of like what you were just talking about. And if there was a system in play, you know, then I think a lot of people could benefit from things, regardless of, you know, it's the foster system or the addiction programs or, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
So,
that's really unfortunate, because if your mom was capable of caring for you, I don't know if you had siblings.
yeah, I did. He's one of
Yeah.
them.
Oh, that's right. If your mom was capable of caring for you guys, like, she shouldn't have had to worry about putting food on the table or keeping a job, because being a parent, especially when you're the only one, is the full-time job. And
Absolutely.
I just think it's a really disgrace that our society doesn't embrace that more, because you know, you probably experienced it firsthand, like how much more functional and better would your life have been if you had been raised by your own parent,
Exactly.
and your own parent had just had, you know, if she was sober and making wise choices as far as those things go, like how much better would our whole society be if our kids could be raised by their own parents with the appropriate support,
Right.
instead of like taken away from them. It's just,
And then I also think that people become a product of their environment, and like for my mom, for instance, you know, she had us young. She had my older brother, when she was, I believe, 16, and so she was still in high school. So she doesn't have life figured out at all. And then she had me a year later, and then she's just kind of got into a pattern of meeting these bad guys, and just you kind of become you surround yourself around people who you know, they make, I don't know how to say it, but you know, they affect your life and the course that you're going to go down. So anyways, back to
yeah, that's absolutely something that I learned, just like going through the things I did, like after I was able to look back on my life and gain some perspective. It's like, wow, I used to be all about homeschooling my kids and reading to them, and now I want to go out and do these other nefarious things. And like, how did this happen? Like, we really are, whether we want to admit it and not, or not, as human beings, like, we're very social, and we're very impacted by the people that we let influence us. So, and that's usually the people that we spend the time around and
Right.
look up to and that sort of thing. So it's amazing once you get some perspective to look back on that and see how that happens. And then the sad part is, like, even when I realized that, like, the positive people just weren't available for me to latch onto, if you will. Like, I want some positive people to influence me and make me think
Right.
differently, but they're busy or wrapped up in their own worlds, and they don't understand the importance of like mentoring or, you know, that sort of thing. So,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, and if there's no system in play to help people, then again, how are they supposed to know how exactly they're supposed to help other people? You know. So that's where Jubilee comes in.
That is where Jubilee comes in, because I do feel like I've learned a lot about the ways that we can make a difference and really transform our whole community.
It seems like such a big task to take on. I mean, there's so many different things that you would have to do, and I mean, like, you would you had said all the things you needed in your life, where you needed like somebody to take your money and just kind of give you the financial support. You needed the mentorship, you needed guidance, you need therapy. Like, I mean, there's so many different things. How do you plan on tackling that?
With Jubilee, our first plan of action is to obtain some properties that will be designated for subsidized for people that qualify for a rent subsidy, which is for the most part probably going to be Section 8. And in Lansing, if you qualify for Section 8, that means like at this point 98% of the time you were recently homeless and recently in the homeless shelter, and therefore at risk for chronic homelessness. So that's the people that we're identifying to help first, and then once they're in our properties, we're going to connect them with community partners and resources that they won't have to pay for.
Like Peckham, stuff like that?
Possibly like Peckham. I'm thinking more like substance abuse. I have a friend that runs a reentry resource program for people that were like incarcerated. And just like things like that, like legal services, like financial services, even like artistic and entrepreneurial support. So these are the sort of community partners that we already have in place or we're working on building. A lot of them are already in place. So with our tenants, we plan to, it's going to be written in their lease that there's going to be like a monthly inspection slash, like, I'm still thinking of the best word, meeting. It's mostly going to be for relationship building and just kind of like assessing their needs, and I hope to be that positive influence through a relationship that I was really looking for, even if they don't need or want any resources, because I'm not going to push anything on people, you know. So
Right.
even if they don't want that, I just want to start to build a relationship so that they know that I'm like someone that they can trust and that they can reach out to, and that share my story with, and let them know like the goal here is not to get money for you or kick you out when you're, you know, struggling. Like I've had different times in my life where I had a really hard time keeping my house clean, and so if that becomes a problem, and I'll even let them know on the first time, like if that's a problem, I'm not going to kick you out. Like that's not going to be my first step. My first step is going to understand that, you know, most people want to live in a clean and sanitary situation. So what is going wrong here, and how can we help you get this cleaned up, and how can we help you resolve that problem? So I'm working on a partnership with a lady that she has like an organizing company. So
cool.
And it's actually one of her goals that she wants to help people for free. So
Oh, wow.
it's going to be a great partnership, I think, when we come up against that, which inevitably, like, that's going to happen.
Right.
So
Now, with the unfortunate thing about like helping a lot of the homeless and the underprivileged people in our, like communities like ours or anywhere really, is drug use. And what's your plan on keeping that out of it? Because I'm assuming you don't want people living in the Section 8 housing or whatever and using drugs while they're there.
I would definitely prefer that they don't, but even more important than that, like, I think that, first of all, I think that all drug use should be decriminalized. I don't really think that, I don't know if I feel the same way about distribution, because that's like more overt and nefarious from my perspective. But I definitely think, like, I know a lot of addicts, and out of the hundreds of addicts that I've talked to, I would say that maybe 2 of them were not traumatized as children. So when we're punishing addicts, what we're really punishing is people that were abused and traumatized as children but haven't figured out how to heal from that yet. So I don't think I would be too focused on whether they're actually using, as more, I would be much more focused on putting positive, like, what are your interests? Are you into art? Okay, then I have somebody that's going to help you develop your art. Are you into music? Then I have somebody that's going to help you learn that. And
So-
do you have an idea for a business? Like, let's find some entrepreneur support for you and get that off the ground, because you can. Believe in people. I think that when it becomes a problem is when there's abuse and violence and that sort of thing happening, and that will be problematic. If I'm like aware of that, then definitely they will have to take action against that. But the actual using, like, yeah, I would definitely prefer it, but I am also definitely not the police.
Right.
So
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean the thing is too is alcohol's a drug and it's completely legal. So
Food is a drug.
food is a
People-
drug. Food is a drug.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm definitely addicted to food.
Mhm.
um, so you're obviously launching it. It's in the works right now. What's your timeline to have it fully launched? What's in the process right now?
What's in the process right now is we're planning our annual event. It's called When September Ends, and that's kind of the major focus right now. So, what we'll be doing for that is celebrating one family that's a local family from Lansing that's recently overcome homelessness. So, they will have been in the city rescue mission. By the time we do this event, they'll be in their housing, and we'll just kind of like ball out as a community, think of it as like a super duper housewarming party for them and let them know that they're loved by the community. So that's what we're working on.
Is this a family you guys helped out?
I haven't connected with them yet, actually.
Okay.
I'm going to make a call to my friend that's a caseworker at the City Rescue Mission next week.
Okay.
So she's, aware to be, she probably knows who she's going to pick for it. So the specifications are, like, they have to have kids because this is a whole nother rabbit hole, but when I was at
Let's go down it.
Okay, let's go down it. When I was at the City Rescue Mission, because I did stay there, I've stayed at the Domestic Violence Shelter and I've also stayed at the City Rescue Mission. So when I was at the City Rescue Mission, I noticed that, like with my kids, I had made it a priority, even though it was a struggle sometimes, to get them to community events and like to the Wharton Center, and they rode horses and they had music lessons and these sorts of things. But we got some Wharton Center tickets donated, and my roommate was supposed to go with me, but she didn't go, and she just like scoffed at it. And there was like other things there, like people in these situations, when survival is your priority, you're not really thinking about the Wharton Center or what sort of
Right.
community events you can get your kids out to. So one thing that I hope to do with Jubilee is definitely like intentionally get underprivileged kids, disadvantaged community members out to community events to see what's available in the community, because you hear so many times, and it's usually from like disadvantaged people, there's nothing to do in Lansing, and my jaw just drops. Like, I have friends putting on events every day of the week. I'm
Wow.
overwhelmed with things to do in Lansing. That's just not true. So just to open their eyes up to like the different sorts of things and experiences that you can experience just in Lansing. So I think it's
Right.
important for those of us that are in the position to do so to intentionally make the effort to get, especially the kids, because it's not their fault. I'm not even going to say that it's their parents' fault necessarily that they're in certain situations, but it's definitely not the kids' fault. And I just think it's really unfortunate that they're suffering and not aware of these sorts of opportunities that are out there. So
I grew well before we went into foster care. I was homeless. We were all homeless actually, and we were staying at a hotel downtown Lansing that we were put in through the Red Cross, and we didn't have any food. My mom didn't have a job or anything, and that was the reason why we went into foster care. But every single night we would have to go to the homeless shelter and eat dinner. And I talk about it in the podcast in another episode. I remember standing in line, like looking around at all these people who obviously look homeless, and I'm like, man, these people are homeless. I didn't think we were homeless.
Right.
But yeah, definitely like Wharton Center things or just events going on. That doesn't cross your mind when you like you said, survival is a factor in your life. So what kind of programs do you plan on providing for them?
At the event, or
Because you said that like Warren Center events aren't necessarily a priority to these kids, and
Yeah.
you want to get them kind of involved in the community. What kind of events are you? And you said that there's events going on daily. What kind of events are going on?
just like art fairs, festivals, like there's all sorts of things. Like myself as an individual, and also the people that are on my board, and since I've been talking about Jubilee more frequently over the last year as like something that I'm serious about, like as an organization, we've been building relationships and hopefully awareness that these needs exist. So, in the potential of like, it's all going to be through relationships and hopefully donations, but like, there's people that could donate music lessons, horseback riding lessons, in professional music lessons, not.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I've seen like neighborhood community centers like make an effort, and you get like a piano teacher in there that maybe just finished their second course of piano and they don't really know how to teach, or and they don't know that much about piano. So it's
Right.
nice that the kids get an opportunity to pound on a piano, but they're not really learning much. Like that's not really an enriching, like that's not what I'm
Right.
talking about. What I'm talking about is noticing that a kid's serious about music and having a partner that's also serious about music. Like the sorts of lessons that cost $100 an hour, could you donate 6 of these?
Mm-hmm.
And then my hope would be that maybe since the kid's serious about music, that a relationship would develop and that they would work out a partnership that was like somehow affordable. Maybe Jubilee could step in and pay for some of it as an organization if we have the funds available, if they were discounted.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
it's all going to be like a connecting of the need with the resources available in our network, which are hard to pin down until
It
we
is.
understand the need and the resources. But I see the potential, and other people are starting to understand and get excited about it also.
So if somebody wanted to reach out to you to offer any services,
Oh my gosh, yes.
who can they contact you directly? How do they get a hold of you? They email you?
Yeah, I definitely like even could do that now. We don't have tenants currently because
Mhm.
like I literally just got the paperwork back last week.
Right.
So we're gonna start fundraising for properties, but there are still like I know a lot of people that could benefit from the services if there were people that were willing to
Mhm.
donate that sort of thing. Absolutely, I will connect them.
I see. I was thinking like even like these local neighborhoods have these gardening areas. I've never been a part of it, but I think they're pretty cool.
Mhm.
Like even if somehow kids could get involved in that, it
Mhm.
kind of teach them how to grow their own food and whatnot.
Yes, that would be
Teach
awesome.
teach them some independence a little bit. It'd be cool
I
too.
think actually gardening is like really for myself because I have a community garden. It's really important for my relationship with food to understand
Absolutely.
that food doesn't really. It's not healthy for us to think that food is easily accessible at the grocery store because we
Right.
spend our little ducats on it. Like it's important, I think, to our psyche and our souls to understand that food comes from effort.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely agree with you there. Mhm.
Absolutely. So I guess you're still in search of other people helping or offering their services to you. I had a question. I don't remember what it was now. So what's your time frame on having this fully launched?
I prefer aspirations as opposed to goals, so there's
Okay.
really not a time frame. It's kind of more like a process and a step building. Just again, like personally, I've put like most of my effort into this, and also like I don't have a real job right now, so the resources will not be coming from my pocketbook. They will come from like people that understand and support the idea,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really hard to put a time frame on that. So what we're focused on right now is like our event, and this is the 5th time that I've coordinated this event, the 2nd time with a team, so it's not just my project now.
So you have a team.
Yes.
How many people are on your team?
Currently there are 3 other people on the team.
Okay.
And we're looking to add to that. If anyone that's listening has anything that they would like to contribute to the team, there's several open board positions.
What exactly are you looking for?
Um,
Or what type of individuals are you looking for?
So what I'm looking for the most is people that are willing to engage their networks to make it a bigger thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for instance, with our event, what would really be helpful is people that would reach out to local vendors, performers, people that do like exhibiting either artwork or resource tables, like anybody that would want to be a part of the event. Because I definitely know enough people to put on a great event, but that's not really the point. The point is to
Mhm.
engage our network and build relationship with the community and stretch it out till maybe one day, you never know, like somebody could come to our event to be a vendor and then they could invite their rich uncle to come support them at the event, and then while
Right.
they're listening to someone talk about our project, the rich uncle could be like, hey, I've got a property that I want to donate.
Right.
So that's the kind of like, I wanted to have a broader reach, and not necessarily just through like social media or flyers or that sort of thing, but by connections. So somebody that would be willing to engage their network and support like the project that we're working on right now is this event. So invite people to the event, like actively personal messages, phone calls, visits, that sort of thing, because those are like what's really most effective. So
Okay.
that's primarily what I'm looking for. It would be awesome if we could find like a realtor or somebody that's experienced in obtaining properties, and also like a contractor, somebody that's experienced in like making repairs and that sort of thing, as far as like specific
Maintenance.
board positions. But
Okay.
overall, people that are willing to engage enthusiastically their networks and have the time and capacity to be dependable and, you know, make an effort.
Absolutely. Now, this event is called When September Ends.
So, yes.
And when is it? It's in September?
It's at the end of September, when September ends.
Okay, so what's the dates?
Saturday, September 25th.
Okay, and what are the events that... Is it just you guys putting on the event, or is it like a
Yes.
festival? What kind of event is it?
It's going to be...
And where is it located?
So it's going to be at the Fledge on the east side in Lansing. It's pretty close to Sparrow Hospital.
Okay.
The plan is to shut down the street and have vendors and performances in the street. So
Wow.
it'll just be kind of like a great housewarming party for this family overall, and also like an opportunity for people to connect and meet new people, and you know, like how these events usually go. They're usually pretty great. So
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
lot of
Street
fun.
games.
yes,
Yeah.
games. Yeah, we're
Concerts.
gonna have different events for the kids. There's like gonna be an open mic for kids from 2 to 4 that day,
Cool.
and different vendors, activities, performances, all that stuff.
Are you having local artists, like
Absolutely.
musicians and like painters and...
Absolutely.
Awesome.
My friend Christina, she's going to do live art. She's made a breakthrough on the Lansing art scene. Her name is Christina Castilla. She does some amazing work, and she's going to do live art for us. And there's other artists coming to like sell their art and exhibit and that sort of thing. And the Fledge is basically like one huge art exhibit anyways. So
Right.
yeah,
have
there
to
will
tell-
definitely be lots of art there.
I have to tell my wife about that. My wife's an artist.
Oh my, maybe she wants to
Thing.
come.
I'll mention it and see what she has
Absolutely.
going on. Yeah, she's a big painter. Although she doesn't do it as much as she would like. She complains about that all the time.
Real life does get in the way of that.
Absolutely, especially when you have kids. Obviously, you know. So you said that you don't have a real full-time job or anything, but obviously, I'm sure this is a full-time job in itself.
Yes. And building the relationships has been a full-time. I've done like a lot of volunteering, and also like I knew I wasn't going back to school to learn about nonprofits, so I'm not going back to school. So it was like all on the job, and like presenting myself as a willing, enthusiastic volunteer, and building relationships, and creating opportunities to learn about nonprofit. And I'm actually the so I do have like one paid job. I don't get paid very much for it. I won't say the amount, but it's important to me that, you know, it sounds like an official job. I'm the copy editor for an organization called COGGLE,
Okay.
Christians of Greater Lansing. So I write
Okay.
for them and keep a blog and that sort of thing. And it's a nice little stipend each month, but it's not like, you know,
Right.
gonna pay my bills or anything.
Mhm.
But I do put a lot of energy into that organization and the work that they do, and I've learned a lot through relationships that I've built there.
What kind of work is it? Is it, you said you're an author. You
Yeah.
write. So is it a newspaper? What is it?
I write an online newsletter for them.
Okay.
And in conjunction with that, I started a blog because like I wanted to start doing highlights in it to start highlighting believers in the area, because I'm not aware of any other organization or publication that does this. So I wanted to highlight like how people's relationship with God and their experience with their faith like influences the projects and the work that they do,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's art, ministry, or anything like that actually. So you can't put all that stuff in the newsletter because people are gonna
Right.
be like, oh my gosh, they're just gonna stop reading. So I started my blog. So now it's like, they can go in our newsletter and then click on get to know such and such better, and then they'll go to my blog where it's like a longer, you know,
Right.
description of
So
like the.
you interview these people?
I do.
Awesome.
Hmm.
So it's almost like a podcast.
It's very similar.
I have some people that you might be interested in interviewing for that. So you interview believers just to get their perspective on God and life and how it all plays.
Yeah, kind of just like
them.
the short version of their testimony, and a lot of times people, like if they're a believer, that feeds into the work that they're doing, and I like to focus on that. Like I just really get excited about that sort of thing. So
Okay. So how does that play into Jubilee?
well, it plays into Jubilee quite a bit because the relationships that I've made, like one person I interviewed is on my board. And I didn't know him before that. I will reach out periodically to different people and say, do you know anybody that wants to do this? And that's how I got connected with one person that's on my board and a couple of the performers. And also, I think that you have interviewed Jared before. And
Yeah.
well, I did write a blog article about Jared, but that was kind of like the opposite. Like I have
Shout out to Sleep in Heavenly Peace.
Yes, definitely, they're amazing.
I was gonna actually talk to you about them.
Yeah, they do great work. I'm not a part of the core team, but I volunteered with them in different capacities for the last couple years. So
Okay.
yep, and they I don't think it actually went through, but to the family that we celebrated last year, they were definitely willing to donate beds for the whole family. I don't think that at the end of the day, I think the family, like, I don't know, it was weird. They didn't want them.
They didn't want the beds?
I don't know exactly what happened.
Did they have beds?
I don't think so. But like I said,
Oh.
it was weird.
That was weird. Yeah, because I was reading that thing you had sent me about Jubilee, and I had read that there was a whole family that had received a bunch of beds, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're doing work with Sleep in Heavenly Peace.
Absolutely.
So was that them?
Yes.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, Jared is a great guy. I love that guy.
I agree.
So, you're using this blog to kind of network a little bit as well, right?
Yeah, it serves many
back to that.
purposes, actually.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about Jubilee? I mean, obviously you're looking for more board members. You're in the works of launching it.
Yes, that would be great. There's for our event, there's still like not a whole lot of space left for local performers, but definitely a little bit of space for some performers and a whole lot of space for vendors. If anybody's got, pretty much anything that's family appropriate.
Okay.
It's definitely a family event, so all the music will be, we call it positive and inspirational, so we're not objectifying anyone or encouraging any graphic depictions of sex or violence or any of that stuff, because there will be kids there throughout. So
I have a recommendation for music if you're interested. I don't want to mention it on the podcast.
Absolutely, I'm interested.
Okay. All right. I'll I have somebody I want to recommend who's appropriate and whatnot, but I'll talk about that later.
Okie dokie, I got it.
Okay, so I guess is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think that was a lot, actually.
That was a lot. It's kind of a lot to take in. I'm trying to think of questions about Jubilee, but I don't. It seems amazing that somebody's willing to take on so much to be able to help people, because, like you had said, there's not that many resources available. I mean, there are a lot of resources, but knowing how to use them exactly is the problem. People like for instance, my mom had resources, but she didn't know how to handle it. One of the resources she had was parenting classes and whatnot, but it didn't really help her any. She didn't, I don't think, knew how to apply that to her life and how to parent. So if she were to have somebody, if she went to these parenting classes and then had somebody alongside her and be like, hey, probably shouldn't do that. This is how you apply that. It probably would have had more of a greater effect on her outcome.
The problem with the parenting classes and whatnot is like they might present a lot of good information, but that's not really, unless someone is really inspired and committed to learn that way, that's not an effective way to teach humans. The other thing, we learn through significant relationships. So if we want people to learn how to be better parents, by those of us that feel like we are good parents, it's going to require a lot of effort and going into their homes and building relationships and understanding, like, it's even harder than that. Even just being in the homes, like, you have to understand that people are going to learn through you, and it's going to take a long time. They're not just going to like take your advice right away and you're going to see a difference tomorrow. It's like contending with people and being patient with them. So that's what it's really going to take to make things better for all of us, because, you know, like, let's be realistic. When we get these kids out of poverty and certain mindsets, there's going to be less crime. And if we don't put the effort into that, there's going to be more crime.
Exactly.
And that's just how it goes. So
I always mention how if I didn't go into foster care, even though I didn't necessarily have a great life in foster care, but if I didn't go into foster care, I'd probably be in jail, or I would have had a kid at a very young age. And my brother Michael, he probably would have been in jail because he had, at the age of like 7 or 8, had broken into a vehicle and had been kind of in trouble with the law a little bit. So, you know, we probably wouldn't have been down a great path. But if we had, I guess, better parenting, or, you know, maybe if my mom had, or my parents had, you know, somebody to kind of take their hand and be like, hey, you know, this is how you should parent, or this is how you should discipline, or whatever, then maybe we wouldn't have ended up in that position.
Yep. And you can just stretch that out across like all the organizations that are trying to do good work. Like, the good work that they're doing is just like is impeded by so much bureaucracy and red tape. Like, everything gets caught up in there. The money that we spend on these agencies and organizations that are supposed to be helping, like, they're just, my perspective is skewed as a consumer that didn't have great luck with these things, but it's just wasted.
Now, you're doing work with homeless in the rescue mission in Lansing. Are you doing work with like local like foster care agencies or anything like that?
I haven't done any work with that yet.
No?
That's an interesting
that.
path to go down. Yes.
You should look into that. It might be a real one thing that's real difficult about the foster. I'm discovering this as I'm trying to like get people to come on for the podcast to interview with the foster care system and whatnot. It's like their system is real enclosed. They don't really want outside people coming in. They don't want people to interview their social workers. They don't want to talk about anything. So it might be a difficult program, or difficult system to try to get into.
It is. I've had 5 CPS investigations, actually. My kids have never been removed as a result of I like to say that for the incident that I described to you, where my ex tried to burn down my house and stuff, like, I got in more trouble than he did, because he was off of probation and I was still dealing with CPS.
Wow.
And that's really the only thing that happened that day, is I called CPS on myself. And I don't. And
you were trying to get out of there.
I was, and like, even when CPS came and tried to help me, and I had to deal with them for 6 months, like, as an individual that's struggling, I know very much what I need help with. Do you think those are the things that they helped me with?
No,
not at all.
They want to micromanage your life, probably.
They did, and like, just the ideas they had were absurd, and it's in so many ways, it's just like such a messed up program.
Absolutely. And it's just, that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yes.
Okay, I guess, is there anything else you want to mention? Any other events coming up in the near future that you might possibly foresee?
I just want to give a shout out to the Fledge. The Fledge is an amazing place. If you have any idea for an event, project, or business you'd like to start, there's like so much support there. Definitely just pop in.
What is the Fledge?
The Fledge.
I don't really know what it is.
You don't know what the Fledge is?
I don't.
The Fledge is hard to describe because the proprietors of the Fledge, Jerry and Shannon Norris, are not very good at saying no. So if you ask them, I have this wild idea, they're going to say yes. So that means that every person that comes changes the dynamic. So it's really kind of like hard to really describe what it is. But I will give this a shot. It's a community center for sure. There's like food distribution that goes on there pretty much 24/7. They move so much food through there, free food. So if anybody needs food, that's where you go. It's at 1300 Eureka Street, right behind the Ronald McDonald House on the east side.
Yep.
And there's also like Jerry has started and successfully managed like countless company, like global companies. Like he's a very successful tech guy. I don't know about all that stuff. Like, so I'm not using the right words, but it's just remarkable that he has like, at this point in his life, put his focus. He could make a lot of money, is what I'm trying to say. But instead, what he's trying to do is build a better community by giving other people opportunities to, lift up out of poverty. That's like their main focus. So there's a lot of entrepreneurial support there. That's actually how I got connected with a program through LEAP that is what actually like launched me to the resources necessary to fill out the paperwork.
So is LEAP through them? Because I've heard of LEAP.
LEAP is a different entity, but there's like lots of partnerships going on.
Okay.
So through the Fledge, I got connected with LEAP in a couple different ways and was recently accepted into and finished their One and All program, which is an entrepreneurial program for people that are below the Alice threshold. So broke folks, basically. Yep.
Well, that's very cool. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. It's amazing what you're doing, and it's a huge undertaking for sure. I couldn't imagine having to be responsible for helping so many people, but I'm glad that somebody is willing to take that on and to make a better community for the rest of us.
Thank you.
Not for the rest of us, for them, for everybody else. So thank you again.
My pleasure.
All right. It's been great.